So if you happen to have been here last Easter, which is my first Easter with all of you, if you have the unlikely experience of recalling what I said, then you'll remember I preached about when Christianity traded celebrating the resurrection to focus celebrating on suffering of the cross. But this year, no suffering. We are full speed into spring, pagan celebration, and exploring how all of that joy weaves itself with the Christian Easter story. I will also, if time allows, briefly mention the Easter Bunny. I want to start with the debated origins of the word Easter. Is it pagan, Jewish, Christian? Many religious and historical scholars discuss the importance of understanding the other spring and equinox festivals first, festivals of the Middle East, of Europe, and Africa, and their influence on the present-day Easter. So after you know that history, maybe you can make a better decision for yourself. So even the New Unger's Bible Dictionary asserts that the word Easter is of Anglo-Saxon origin and related to the goddess Estra. Each spring, there were sacrifices offered to Estra, giving thanks for new life. The belief is documented by an 8th century Anglo-Saxon monk who wrote about the celebration of the goddess. According to the New Unger Bible Dictionary, it was not until the 8th century that the Anglo-Saxons of Europe, mostly what is now Great Britain, adopted the name of Easter to designate the celebration of Jesus and the resurrection. So again, some weaving there of the traditions. Other scholars assert that the Easter story and celebration comes from even earlier. I chose Professor Tony Nugent because he is from Seattle University, which is where I went to seminary. He explains the Easter story comes from Sumerian legend of Tammuz and his wife, Tammuz's wife, Iana, also known as Ishtar. Ishtar was the Assyrian and Babylonian goddess of fertility, sex, and power. The myths surrounding her tell of her death, renewal, and fertility. Neighboring kingdoms around had the same other resurrection stories, like the Egyptian god Horus, who has died and resurrected. And those stories started around the same time as this stories in Sumer. So there is some evidence that Easter began as a pagan custom that was later adopted by Christianity, because why make them mutually exclusive? And let's pause for a minute and think about the term pagan. I use it all the time, and I think I occasionally use it incorrectly. So what does it actually mean? So pagan is derived from the late Latin word paganus. This was a term used in the realm of the Roman Empire to name anyone or group who practiced a religion other than Judaism, Christianity, or Islam. I find it interesting that they included all three of the Abrahamic faiths. That was very broad thinking of them to include Islam, but Muslims believe in the same God as Christians and Jews. If you ask the present-day Pagan Federation International, they will tell you paganism is an ancestral religion of the whole of humanity and remains active throughout much of the world today. And I notice how this fits in so smoothly with our Unitarian Universalist sixth source, which is on the back of your order of service if you really want to research this when you come home. But the sixth source, so the sources are where we draw our religious history from. And it says, the living tradition we share draws from many sources. Spiritual teaching of earth-centered traditions, which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. And if you want to be a UU nerd, that was not in the original sources. That was added later. That's part of our living tradition. We make changes. So now we have Easter celebrations beginning as a pagan festival celebrating spring, and goddesses who existed before the birth of Christianity. And while we're at it, let's look at a few goddesses celebrated in the spring from a few parts around the world. They are all celebrations of renewal, the earth, abundance, and fertility. I've already mentioned Istra of Great Britain and Europe, Ashanti, a West African fertility and spring goddess, Cybele, a Roman mother goddess, Frida, the North fertility goddess and partner of Odin, Sarawati, a Hindu goddess of the arts and learning, and Ishtar Oriana, or Inanna, the Assyrian and Babylonian goddess of fertility, sex, and power. The Sumerian goddess Inanna, or Ishtar, descends into the underworld to find her husband who had recently died. In the underworld, she was killed, but she was later brought back to life by other gods. As this story comes from Sumer, it is perhaps the first recorded ancient history of resurrection. Inanna is permitted to return to the upper world for 6 months out of the year, and then return to the underworld for the other 6. Death, rebirth, death, and rebirth. And notice how the Greeks picked up that story. I don't want to omit Greece and other parts of Europe and their possible contribution to the term Easter, because it is also believed that Easter may have derived from the word Pascha and is believed to be rooted in the Jewish spring festival of Passover. There's much overlap between those two festivals and remembrances, such as the use of eggs, types of food eaten, and the sacrifice of a lamb. I got time. We're going into the Easter bunny. Where is this bunny story from, and how did it get so weird that a bunny is laying eggs? I was out at Story Mill yesterday, and I saw the first rabbits that I've seen this season, and I looked at them and said, really, come on, I can't believe the stories people tell about you. They were not amused and went back into the little thicket. So we look back again to 7th century Anglo-Saxons. So they're worshiping Istra, and her animal symbol is a rabbit. As we know, rabbits have a very high fertility rate. So the rabbit is a symbol of spring characteristics, abundance, good fortune, lots of children. Meanwhile, just next door in Germany, there is a mythological figure who hatched and hid eggs for children and adults to find on Easter Sunday. Thank you. And the goddess Ostara once healed a bird by changing it into a rabbit. And the rabbit was so grateful and repaid the goddess by laying eggs. There you have it. There's an Easter egg hunt after the service today. There are eggs in here, but don't take them all. Let the kids zip in. Are there any kids still in here? Okay, then I'll just keep it zipped. How did the eggs get to be part of the spring celebration? Well, I hope the Easter bunny's been out running around, putting eggs around here. In ancient Egypt, the egg is a symbol of the sun. Hindus see the shape of the universe in the egg. How beautiful is that? For the Babylonians, the egg is the embodiment of the goddess Ishtar. And the fun activity of dyeing eggs can be found as far back in ancient Persia. They colored and ate eggs at their spring festival. And of course, the Jewish time of Passover uses an egg at the Seder meal. And the Eastern Orthodox, they decorate their eggs bright red for Easter. Guess why? I wasn't going to talk about suffering. In my research, I had so much fun doing the research. I found another interesting reference to the egg. It's described in Scientific American magazine. Their research was that the eggs are associated with the phoenix bird, and the phoenix appears on ancient funeral stones in the 1st century. It's Christian art, and the phoenix is the symbol of resurrection. And the egg from which it rises, says the Scientific and American researchers, becomes our Easter egg. I'll say I don't know. I'm going to go with different things on different years and just figure out eventually how it all goes together. I also want to talk about Jesus. We're an interfaith denomination. We come from deep Christian roots, and there are Christians in our denomination of Unitarian Universalism. In the early Common Era, as Christianity spread throughout Europe, many pagans did not see Christianity as an opposition of their own beliefs. It wasn't either or. Pagans could just incorporate what they liked out of Christianity. They often incorporated both into their festivals. The Christian church got influenced as well, at least for a while, before they tightened down and said, no more pagan festivals. But with so many springtime, spring life rituals, in the early centuries, it made sense that Jesus conquering death should be commemorated in spring, around the time of those other festivals. So the Church Council of Nicaea in 325 of the Common Era, they decided many, many things, but they decided the commemoration of Christ's resurrection would follow a lunar calendar, which I find really surprising, but wonderful. It would forever fall on the Sunday following the first full moon after the spring equinox, making it a celebration of the seasons as well. I celebrate the spring equinox. I did that my first spring here, last spring, by putting all my winter clothes in the back of the closet. You can all laugh. You can all laugh. I didn't do that this year. And at Easter, I also pause to admire the beauty of the resurrection story of Jesus. The poet Wendell Berry tells us, keep practicing resurrection. What an amazing thought. We can rise like the phoenix, and perhaps with new energy and new understanding. Maybe there's a time to reformulate what we need and how we might get it. I'm closing with a poem by the Reverend Sarah Morris Campbell titled Rolling Away the Stone, and she's a Unitarian Universalist minister. In the tomb of the soul, we carry sweet yearnings, pains, frustration, loneliness, regrets, worries. In the tomb of the soul, we take refuge from the world and its heaviness. In the tomb of the soul, we wrap ourselves in the security of darkness. Sometimes this is a comfort. Sometimes it's an escape. Sometimes it prepares us for a new experience. Grateful for the darkness that nourished us, we push away the stone and we invite the light to awaken us to the possibilities within us and among us. Possibility for new life in ourselves and around the world. Amen.